Okay, what is up, Wild Tribe? How's it going? Good to see everybody in the chat room. Tonight is going to be a really good tasting evening. We have, is just coming on, just getting ready, the amazing Lisa from the Chocolate Tart. And here she is.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Lisa. How's it going?
Hi, Brett. Yeah, really good, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Looking forward to learning about chocolate and maybe more importantly, tasting it. But I don't know which one's more important right now. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Me too.
And it sure looks like a lot of other people have as well. A lot of other people are already joining in and getting chatty in the chat room, that thing, including
Good.
Mrs. Fleur Cooper.
Hi, Fleur.
Richard Simpson. So Richard is the man with the malt. His malt is what is the basis for nearly all of our beers.
Okay.
And so anybody joining in who might have stumbled across this, thank you for doing that. Tonight is going to be a tasting evening that Lisa and myself are going to be pairing 5 wild beers, Wild Beer Co. beers, and 5 chocolates curated by, here we go, finally, curated by the Chocolate Tart. Amazing. I'm going to do unboxing in a moment, but without further ado, on getting something to drink and hearing Lisa introduction of who she is and where she's come from and what is chocolate. I thought we'd just, if you crack open a lemon Ipa, we're going to have lemon Ipa and we're just going to enjoy that. We're going to taste it later on in the tasting as well. So with chocolate. So just have half a can or something like that. Or the whole thing. Tonight is all about enjoying beer, maybe slightly differently than you would typically, engaging your senses of taste and flavor and aroma, and having fun and having a natter with your friends. So do those things and you're good. So
cheers.
Thank you. Let's see. Probably shouldn't use. I have all these glasses out in front of me. As a tip for anybody who might not have done it, we'll taste all of them, and you don't have to taste all of these along the same time. This will be recorded, and you can taste them back if you can't handle all 5 drinks because they're a bit intoxicating. And if you are going to taste them all, but maybe not at the same speed and pace, tonight's show will be around about an hour. Then maybe having 5 different glasses out so you can go back to them and taste them in succession. And you were saying, Lisa, as well, it's important to do that with chocolate.
Yeah. Do you not eat all your chocolate all at once?
Okay. So when we the first pairing is going to be with those red little beautiful beautiful little buttons, and don't just devour all of those.
Yeah, just always keep something back so you can go back and compare and reset your palate.
Great. So, cheers, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a crazy week, a crazy time at the Wild Beer Co. this last month. And I'm sure it has for you as it is for everybody watching. It's been a crazy time. But let's have this time of just enjoying some food and some beer. So, Lisa, we met 8 or 9 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
It was maybe actually 8, probably. And Andrew knew you before that. Is that correct? Andrew, the co-founder of the Wild Beer Co. Is that right?
I can't remember. I can just remember Fleur and I sitting in a beer and chocolate event well, Andrew was hosting it and I was co-hosting a little bit like you and I are now.
Okay.
And at the end, Fleur, who's Andrew's wife, she and I were high-fiving. We were so excited with ourselves. What a success it had been. There were a lot of ladies who'd been dragged along to the beer tasting by their men and then got really excited when they realised chocolate was involved. And it was really lovely because it opened up everybody's eyes to really delicious ingredients that do match well together. And all the ladies who didn't like beer were really happy, and all the men that weren't that into chocolate suddenly realised that they were into chocolate, and ladies were realising that beer was great too, as I did.
Yeah.
And then you came to the workshop, Brett, to talk about getting chocolate notes into beer.
Yeah, we wanted to. We were doing research onto how best to get the flavor of chocolate into a beer, and is it best to use cocoa? Is it best to, or what type of cocoa? Maybe cacao beans, nibs even, or is there other bits of the cocoa pod that we can use? And I was a chef before being a brewer, and so I knew there was lots of different types of stuff out there, but I didn't know what was going to be best to infuse inside a drink. And that's where your expertise and passion really stepped in. So yeah, wow, I almost pulled my whole computer off of
knocked your screen off.
My makeshift stand stood up on a chair on a kitchen island and everything. No.
I'm balanced precariously too, so if I topple over, excuse me.
Great.
Yeah. So what did you decide on in the end for infusing?
Yeah. So the
chocolate flavour.
We were making a beer called Wildebeest, which is an imperial. It's classified as a imperial chocolate vanilla espresso stout.
Yum.
It's an amazing beer. It's strong. It's a low, kind of a low alcohol after dinner liqueur. And I say low alcohol in the sense of the liqueurs out there. So this is 11% alcohol beer, but it's meant to be drunk like an after dinner drink. And we found that using cocoa nibs were the best way to kind of get that infusion. And we were initially using it in the cold side of brewing, so it was like a number of days of steeping. But then we were finding that actually we got a bigger punch of flavor by using it on the hot side, like on the cooking.
Oh, okay.
So,
and how many days were you cold steeping it for?
That was it's going back. It would have been 3 days to more, 3+ days. Yeah, definitely. But and that is, we will get into it, but that is in Millionaire.
Yeah.
We do that process on the cooking side of making beer with Millionaire that we'll taste later. And there's also chocolate in Trillionaire as well, which is, that's on par with your rich, intense chocolate and almost burnt, bitter, intense, caramelized, molasses, treacle type character. So it's a big, bold one, just for the end. Yeah.
Can't wait to try it.
Yeah. And so what do you have there?
I've generously given everybody a cocoa bean in the pack. So if you have a look in one of the corners, you'll see the little bean. It's next to the ruby button. And I just thought it'd be really interesting for everybody to recognise and understand where the nibs come from. So They start off in a pod, in a cocoa pod. So this pod was given to me in January by a friend who managed to go to Ghana over Christmas and New Year and brought this pod back for me in her luggage. Very good friend.
Lovely.
Thank you, Jane, if you're watching. So cocoa pods are, this is a pretty average size pod, and when they're fresh they have incredible red, yellow, greeny, brown colours. They're really colourful, and this one's sort of fermented and shriveled, so it's brown. But I opened one up. She brought me 3, so I opened one up, and if you see inside, all the cocoa beans are nestled inside.
Wow.
So when these are fresh, the beans actually sit in a kind of cotton wool, candy floss type of substance called mucilage. And
Lovely.
all of the beans and the mucilage get scooped out of the pod, and then generally they're laid on banana leaves to dry out, to ferment, to kind of start the flavour profile beginning to emerge into the nibs. So if you just take your little bean, all that's happened to this bean is that it's been dried and fermented and roasted. But if you're lucky, you should be able to just snap off the husk on the outside and you'll find the nibs on the inside. And if your bean is not doing as it should, if you're really struggling to get the husk off, I've put some nibs in the bottom of that little indentation anyway for you to try. But if anyone fancies just having a little munch on those nibs, it's quite interesting to try chocolate in its rawest form possible. It's quite a nutty texture. Really reminds me, when I first put it in my mouth, it has a kind of texture of a slightly overcooked chestnut.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, chestnuts are amazing discovery. Like I had never had them. I'd only seen them in movies, very British.
Really?
British movies, and I think it's probably just the Californian in me, that we don't generally have chestnuts in our diet, in our cuisine. I don't know, but or I was just sheltered from chestnuts. But they're amazing. We're talking about chestnuts. Sorry, should be talking about chocolate. So this, someone was saying they thought it was an almond.
Yeah, it's not an almond, it's a cocoa bean. Once used as money, once used as currency by the Mayans.
Really?
So the intense chocolate flavour just comes through straight away.
And there's a little hint of like some tartness to that, like a sharpness.
Mm.
When I crunch it open and I start moving it around with my saliva, I kind of get more flavors going on that I wasn't expecting.
Those flavors that come through are literally there because of the minerality in the soil, in the terroir where the cocoa chocolate tree grew. If there's any flavor notes coming up from the minerality in the ground, then it will show in the flavor of the nib. And then the little cocoa bean is relying on being sold to a proper chocolate factory that's going to properly produce chocolate that brings out the natural flavor notes. So when we're trying all these chocolates, as we taste them with the beer, I don't want you to be imagining that someone's been in a factory putting little pipettes of various flavors in with the chocolate. These flavors are naturally occurring. So,
right, okay.
Just like the wine world,
there
are areas in the world that are superb for chocolate and complex flavor notes, and there are areas in the world that chocolate can easily grow, but not with very complex, interesting flavor notes because the minerality in those areas are boring.
They're boring.
Yeah,
we don't really talk about
those countries would be the Ivory Coast and Ghana.
And so, Do you happen to know where these beans came from? Your pod, but
these beans that you're trying are from Peru.
They're from Peru. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly which plantation or whether they were even in fact single origin. They're just a pack that I've bought online.
Yeah.
To pop in the tasting boxes.
Good. Yeah. So good notes there, Penny. As she says, like some real good earthy notes, and it's reminding her of like a green and blacks type chocolate. Yeah. Very good.
Sorry to share with you, but green and blacks is low quality luxury chocolate.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, controversial there.
Shocking news.
What?
Yeah.
But Lisa, maybe should we get going on? I'm eager to try some of the actual chocolate, not just the ingredient, not just the beginning of the chocolate story. Should we move and get into the first beer and chocolate pairing?
Yeah, I'd love to. And then we're going to go back, folks, to the piece of what looks like white chocolate and the piece of very dark chocolate that's in there with your cocoa bean later on. Do not let us forget.
Yes.
I'd really like you to try those.
I actually forgot to say about the nibs. One thing I really like doing, I'm lucky and blessed that I can take home a small handful of cocoa nibs from work, but I like putting it in my granola. So you get that crunch and you get like a hint of chocolate, but it's not all full of sugar. It's not full of milks and emulsifiers and stuff. It's just this pure cocoa flavor that doesn't dissolve. Anyways.
Yeah, that's food.
Yeah, fruit booter and the
ruby.
There I'm struggling to pick this up. I had it teetering. These little dudes. These little ones. So fruit booter. I'm gonna pour this one. Which glass am I gonna pour it in? Let's go into this one. Fruit booter. Beautiful pink. I'm gonna be sharing my drinks with my wife tonight.
I'm sharing mine with my husband, whose arm keeps appearing. It just moved him over.
So this is a beautifully pink color. If it had a chance to settle in your fridge for a day or so, you might see it being really clear, lovely, nice and pink. And on the aroma, you get really vibrant tart raspberry notes. Your mouth almost starts salivating because of it. And we use real skin and pips and raspberries, real raspberries in here. No sort of essences in this beer, and we've tried many different forms of raspberry in the sense of like puree, or we've tried a concentrate on something else in a small batch, versus whole raspberries. Now these raspberries are frozen, but they're like kind of crumbled up. But that skin and pips, that touch with the wild, so to speak, really gives off a vibrant whole raspberry note. Not to mention that this beer is aged in an oak foeder for at least four months. At the moment, it's a little bit longer. And it's aged and fermented like that in these large oak vessels that hold 7,000 liters. And then it also contains some pink peppercorns. So that's an added like floral, fruity note that you get in there. So that's my very quick fruit booter discussion.
Genius. Where did the idea of pairing the raspberry with peppercorns come from?
It was a little bit of happenstance, probably. We used to make a beer once a year called Schnoodle Pip, which is an amazing beer.
Good name.
Yeah, really good name.
I might call my next dog that.
Yeah, they do it. It's a good name. I look it up on look it up on Urban Dictionary. That's where we got it. We got the name from Urban Dictionary. It's definitely a good name. But so Schnudelpip was a pink peppercorn saison, and we had a few, and that's a wine barrel aged beer, and we were tasting Schnudelpip and the beer, and we did a blend, and we had some leftover barrels of beer, and we got local. I want to say we got local raspberries that year, and we threw those berries in to see how it would go, and we really fell in love with that marrying of that really floral, fruity character from the pink peppercorns that's distinctly different than the raspberry, and thought it really lifted it and brought an accent to it. So it's kind of happenstance where we had a little bit left over, and then it turned into a much bigger beer for us, one that we believed in a lot, and people are always, we really want to try to deliver a wow and an experience that's slightly off kilter in beer. So that's what Fruit Booter did that for us and a number of people. And that's that.
Yeah, and I can't wait for everybody to try it with some of the ruby buttons. So I would suggest,
can we do it?
Take 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Just get them crunched up, move them all around your palate. Ruby probably came on the scene about 3 years ago for the chocolate world, and there were lists and queues and pleading and swapping and bartering and all sorts of ways of trying to get hold of it. I was really lucky. I was actually at the factory the week that it arrived in the chocolate factory in Oxford, where it was coming into this country. So I got to try it really, really early on. Unfortunately, it got sort of enrobed around Kit Kat initially, and in general, okay, I guess the people buying Kit Kat aren't looking for a really complex chocolate experience.
Yeah.
So
you can see
all these kind of very citrusy and sour, fruity notes that are in the Ruby didn't really go down very well with the Kit Kat eating public, and it was slated quite a lot in the early days, just in tabloid newspapers and anyone that wanted to write about the undesirable experience of eating a Kit Kat enrobed in ruby. But since then, it really has found its place in the chocolate world. It's naturally that colour. So the beans are pink.
Really?
Yeah, they're really rare. That's why there isn't very much on the market at the moment.
Wow.
Because there isn't enough for it to be made to be everywhere. So
right.
the kind of the thing with the ruby chocolate, apart from the color, because obviously that's like the 4th type of chocolate if you were going to think about the milk, the dark and the white, but in my mind it's the 5th type of chocolate, because you're going to be trying another type in a little while.
I think I can guess. Yeah.
The ruby does actually have citric acid added into the chocolate when it's being made to enhance those fruity notes, but that's the only kind of false addition.
Yeah.
And it's a small amount, and it's growing at the moment in Ecuador, in Brazil, and also on the Ivory Coast, which is interesting because that's deemed not to be the greatest destination for interesting chocolate, but obviously it's thriving and growing well there.
Yeah.
What do people think?
So would that be the Ivory Coast and having something like the ruby thriving there? Is that maybe showing like it's kind of becoming more more interesting in the chocolate world than it
I
used
think the
to be?
situation in Ivory Coast is down to what the farmers can lay their hands on, what grows with the biggest yields. There's war, there's all sorts,
Right.
there's droughts. It's
Yeah.
very volatile. And Ghana, so I'm tipping.
Okay.
Ghana is kind of all tied up with the government, and the farmers aren't given any incentive to grow new or different beans. It's all politics. It's frustrating and a bit of a sad story, really, when we hear it in the chocolate world back here.
Yeah.
Farmers in Ghana are their hands are tied. They're beginning to want to be entrepreneurial, and they're wanting change, but they can't access it.
I am going to devour these pink buttons if we don't.
Don't devour all of them just yet.
Yeah, because I really enjoy them.
They're quite Moorish, aren't they?
I'm controversially maybe it's not. Maybe you can help shed some light on it. I really enjoy white chocolate, and these are really light. They're not. I like dark chocolate as well, but I do enjoy white chocolate. And whenever I say that to people, often I hear a comment of, "Well, it's not really chocolate."
Well, strictly speaking, it isn't.
Which is fine. I'm just saying I like it. But is that so? Kind of, I guess, somewhat of a segue into the next one. But this is such a light flavored chocolate? Is that are they kind of keeping something bitter out of it, or how is this? This almost reminds me of white chocolate, but you're saying it's not. This is chocolate.
No, it's not. No, having a chocolate with a smoothness and being palatable and bringing out complex flavor notes is about taking time and care in producing that chocolate. So,
Okay.
this sits in the world of high quality luxury chocolate. Not quite as high as the 4 that we're yet to taste.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? Should we move on to the next one?
If you'd like to.
What do people think? Are they? I've seen some really, really great comments, and I don't think you can read them, but Judy May is saying this works really well. Soft yet complex beer, amazing match with smooth, fruity chocolate. I love it. With some great emoji choices in there.
Thanks, Judy.
Yeah.
It's kind of now I'm just going back to the fruit booter. There's a kind of sherbety element to it.
Yeah.
And I always think that about the ruby. It's kind of got a sherbet element, which I accept is probably from the citric acid more than anything. But it makes me think of the ruby chocolate. If it was going to be compared with, say, the cheese world, the ruby is like the goat's cheese. You know, that kind of like just a totally different flavor to a hard cheese or a blue or a soft. Goat just has that citric, lemony, fresh, really refreshing. Yeah. So this chocolate's much more refreshing on my palate than a white.
I agree with you on that for sure. Yeah, it's much more refreshing, not nearly as heavy and rich. So yeah, and lots of love for the chocolate and the fruit booter. Brilliant.
Good.
So let's I think we should. We're getting some cues to get out the next one, which is going to be returning to the lemon Ipa. Where'd my lemon Ipa go? Here it is. I'm going to top it up since I poured it earlier. So, lemon Ipa is a beer that I wanted to make a beer that was kind of like adult lemonade, but with quite a lot of hops in it, and not to make it bitter, but it does have bitterness to it for sure. But I wanted the tartness. I wanted some sourness, some straight up kind of mouth puckering sourness. A lemon, like rind lemon juice type, juicy character body to it, as well as the hops. There is quite a lot of aromatic, piney, citrusy hops that have been in the dry hop. So what that means is that the beer has been boiled and mashed, and that's where we get our unfermented sugar, and then been fermented with a special yeast called, it's actually called Philly Sour, discovered in Philadelphia. And this special yeast gives off lactic acid, and that's what makes it tart, and that's what makes it sour. And then when it's all done fermenting, we add more hops in there, and that loads of Vic's Secret and Equinaut hops, for those of you who know those varieties, and that gives it gives almost, I find this kind of sweet melon and what's pink grapefruit juice, like tart pink grapefruit juice type character, which is going to be different than the pink grapefruit in the next beer. But that's what those are notes that I'm getting today out of this one.
Yeah, it's sort of like the honeydew melon at that stage where it's really, really sweet, but it's about to ferment.
Quite about to go off, about to go over.
Yeah.
Those flavors,
very
those
caramelly as well.
Right, yeah. So those overripe fruit characters are really on trend at the moment in the beer world of like overripe pineapples and papayas and mangoes, tropical fruit and melon. It used to, probably about 8 years ago, right when we started the brewery, the trend and the hops that were out there were all focused a lot on pine and resiny, different citrus flavors, whether it be lime juice or lime zest, grapefruit bitterness, lemon bitterness, lemon rind, lime, these types of flavors. Now it's all about the tropical fruit and the really wacky character that you can get out of it. So, but that's lemon Ipa. Lemon Ipa is citrusy, it's aromatic, and it's going to go really kind of, I feel as though this is almost a contrasty type pairing that's going to help contrast each other. That's how I felt about this pairing.
Yeah, that we're going to be pairing this with the chocolate that is next door to the ruby. So it's the very pale, the lightest coloured chocolate. So really lovely snap. This is like the couple, the opposites attract.
Right.
It's got quite a sweetness, I think you'll find straight away. But again, move it around your palate. Suddenly, the warmth of your mouth, you get this burst of caramel.
It really does. It comes in later, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's like you got on the train and you're waiting for the stop, and suddenly it's there before you realise.
Yeah.
You've pulled into the station and all those flavours are just... And just go back then to the beer. And it's kind of like softening the bitter flavours.
It really does. I found this pairing personally, it's really interesting because it almost kind of cancels out the beer in a way, but you get some citrusy notes coming through that are kind of pairing nicely with that sweet caramel note that I didn't expect to work. And I was quite excited about this one.
Should I tell you why? Because it's a white chocolate.
Oh, right.
It's a caramelized white brand.
Okay.
Yeah. And it came about by accident. It's probably been around now for 5 or 6 years, but it happened because the chocolate factory, the workers on the evening shift had somebody had by accident put the tempering, the machine temperature had gone up rather than down for the overnight shift, and the first person on in the morning gave the vat a great big stir and dislodged the caramelized sort of milk solids and sugar that was settled at the bottom of the vat, and a kind of a streak of brown was now through this vat of very expensive white chocolate. So that worker went herring off to find a manager, thinking my job's over.
Yeah.
And the manager quite sensibly said, well, just whip it all through and let's see what we've got, because we're going to have to bin it anyway. And Dulcie was born. So this is called Dulcie. It's also known as Gold. It's a really, really elegant,
it's lovely,
amazing caramelized white. So if you were growing up loving Caramac, as I did,
there is a lot of Caramac
with this.
Yeah, there is a lot of Caramac lovers in the chat room saying that, oh, I'm with a Caramac crew.
Yeah. However, try it with some Caramac and you will never want to eat Caramac again.
Yeah, okay.
This is chocolatey and caramelized, whereas Caramac is just fat and sugar. So that was disappointing for me to come to recognise that.
Yeah, okay.
That grown-up reality.
This it looks like this is a bit of a love it or hate it type pairing, and I might have gotten it wrong. And that's the amazing thing about pairing food, pairing different types of foods, wines or beers with food, or cooking. It's always so personal and so unique to what you enjoy, and unique to often food and aroma is so connected to our senses that I think it's even often unique to what you can remember associated with the flavors, that more subconsciously, I think. And so I think that's also going to be part of the discussion with some of the darker chocolates as well, because we were kind of at odds at the brewery with, no, this chocolate goes better with Millionaire, no, this one goes better with Trillionaire. And so it's a great conversation. That's what pairing drinks with foods is all about. I think it's all about discovery and conversation. And so if you didn't like it, sorry, but you got to have some amazing chocolate and some amazing beer.
Yeah, and you might find that one of the other beers that we're going to drink in a little while will match with that caramelized white. So keep a bit back, and we can keep tasting. I think I really love this pairing because it reminds me of a lemon flavored caramel that I once had in France, like a kind of grown-up Werther's Original.
Yeah,
but it had a lemon flavor to it, and it was just I can just imagine the flavor now. It was just the most exquisite, delicious, chewy, amazing toffee, and it really reminds me, it evokes memories of that day when I ate that bag of toffee.
And that is such a, I think for people, I just had too many thoughts go through my head, sorry.
Slow down.
Yeah, I often have people in events like this when we're back out in the world, in the big bad world, live events, and often people say little comments like, "Oh, I don't have a palate like yours," or I wasn't, I wasn't born with that kind of taste and awareness of that, and I really think that I have developed it over the years, and it's something that it is not a it's something you're necessarily born with, and if you are not if you feel as though you don't have a palate to pay attention to these flavors and nuances, I really think that so many of trying to pair flavors and aromas with memories really helps understand what it helps to develop that palate and helps to develop that awareness of the aromas and flavors that you're having, and that's often give yourself some time to be in those memories, and you'll come to the language that you need to develop the expression of what you're talking about, which I'm struggling right now.
But I have it with smell, so I can walk past someone and they're maybe wearing a perfume that reminds me of my very long dead granny, or the smell of an ashtray. I don't smell cigarettes or ash very often in my life because no one in my life smokes, but if I smell an ashtray, it reminds me back to a time of my life that involves grandparents and parties and sort of sitting in the corner sneaking martini out of the drinks cabinet. But I can't remember the flavour of the martini, but it's the smell of the ashtray.
And that's exactly what you'll find in, you're tasting a particularly dark stout, and you're smelling it, and you'll be instantly taken back to that. And that is the beginning, the middle, and the end of appreciating food. Is it takes you back in time. It allows you to travel to different areas. But speaking of different areas, what's the next chocolate? Where is it from? Tell us next chocolate and beer. I guess I have been doing the rhythm of beer first. Sorry.
Do you want to go with the beer first, or do you want me to start with the chocolate?
Let's do beer first.
You've got 2 dark chocolates, so be sure when you do choose the chocolate that we've all double, triple checked that we're all eating the same one.
So we won't show people what it is yet because we don't want them to have it. But open up your wild IPA, and if you're one of those who have received a wild IPA glass, purchased, then grab that one. It is the best glass to drink out of, promise.
It's such a gorgeous colour. I never expect it to be this pale. I don't know why.
Oh. This beer is we, in the midst of lockdown last year, it provided a lot of time for soul searching. We were really busy because we had less staff on site and everybody was doing the job of about 4 different people. But it also provided time of a lot of soul searching and figuring out, let's go back to the basics of who we are and what have we learned over the last 8 years. And we're a brewery that's all about pursuing flavor, seeking that out, and also beer and food, and that whole accompaniment, if you want a beer to watch with and to watch the football with, we do have a beer for that. But if you want a beer that goes with food, pairs with your evening, your Sunday lunch, your Friday night, then we definitely have a multitude of flavors to choose from. But Wild IPA was built from the ground up to go kind of, our goal was to go with as many foods as possible. And to do that, what we did, we started from the malt. So the malt is complex. It comes you get notes of maybe little hints of raisin notes. You get some sweetness in there. It's quite a full-bodied beer. And that helps it hold up to richer, bigger foods. Hamburgers, veggie burgers, fermented foods particularly go really well with the next bit, which is the fermentation of the beer. And the fermentation of the beer happens with 3 different types of yeast. There's 2 red wine yeasts and there's 1 Belgian ale yeast. These give sweet kind of pear and maybe a little hints of banana, but it also brings some kind of white pepper notes, a little bit spicy character. And that particularly comes from the red wine yeast. But all that kind of mixed fermentation, meaning different yeast rather than a singular yeast, that mixed fermentation also builds the body and what's called the umami. Is that the 6th taste or 5th taste? I can't remember, but it's the most recently discovered taste is umami, and that pairs amazing with fermented foods, with cheese, cheese or kimchi or I just went blank. Chocolate. So that's, and then the hops in this beer. The hops are not way bitter, overpowering, but the hops have a grapefruit, sweet, juicy flavor rather than the bitter, sharp grapefruit note that you had before. This is more like juicy grapefruit, pink grapefruit. That's Wild IPA. And that beer is the first beer that we wanted to really put. The name of it is called Wild IPA, and we wanted to build something in lockdown that we could look back at and enjoy. So the whole team's been involved in this one from beginning to end. That's Wild IPA.
It's lovely. It's really lovely. We've paired this with a 64%. What I want you to be sure of is that you're taking the right dark chocolate. So it's the one beside the dulce, beside the caramelized white.
So just next to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the middle section.
And Lisa, you also mentioned earlier about all these kind of scuff marks. What are they? Because I was like, what did you do these things? What happened?
I'm really sorry. I didn't have time to polish them all.
No.
Basically, they come in 3 kilo sacks, so they get scuffed.
No, that's good.
You can just rub the bottom of the chocolate. So if you wanted to line all 4 up and just rub the bottom to bring a shine back, there is in daylight a very, very different color profile to each one of the darker chocolates that we're trying. But this has very, very obvious flavor notes. So I'm just gonna get on with tasting and be quiet for a little while and see if anyone wants to share what pops into there.
Can I just before I got to clarify, someone said hypothetically, if they dropped their box and it all mixed up, they discovered the 2 dark ones. So is it the reddish brown dark one?
It's the reddier one.
It's the red.
It's the one that you would call mahogany.
It's mahogany.
Yes, it's got a very, very deep red color tone to it. And yeah, you could easily drop them all, mix them all up, and separate them back into the correct. I hope no one has dropped them. Has anyone dropped them?
I think so.
Really?
I dropped
Mark,
it.
what were you doing?
On the floor earlier, and now I don't know which one is which.
Right.
So Mark, you're having fun. Don't worry.
Really easy to separate out the
no,
caramelized white and the milk chocolate is much lighter. So line them all up, get some good light on them, and you'll be able to pick out the milk chocolate. And then the two darks, just by tasting your way through them, the 64% is so intense and different to the 66% we're going to be trying in a little while. Anybody want to put it out there and share any flavor notes that are just popping into your mind?
What are you guys tasting in this chocolate?
Cherry, spot on. Raspberry, spot on. Well done, Jennifer.
That's my wife.
You have a good palate. Well trained by Brett.
Oh, she gave you a grumpy look there.
So this chocolate, when I often go and do big chocolate tastings to before lockdown to 100 or more people in a room all at once. And it's really interesting. This chocolate is what I call my Marmite chocolate. People love it or hate it. So I've been presenting tastings where I've watched people spit it out into napkins and sort of squirrel it away, and they haven't even wanted to swallow it.
Really?
Yeah, really.
They're wrong.
At the end of any of my tastings when they're live, I'm obviously flogging chocolate if anyone wants to buy it. And this one actually is the most popular one. So if people are buying afterwards, this is what they want to buy, because it's such an unusual flavor profile when it's tasted by itself and you're really thinking about it. The citrus that comes through first, the red fruits that follow on, they're particularly raspberry and cherry, also red currant, all the really tart red fruits. So not the soft fruits like strawberry. They're the ones that get you at the back of your mouth, that are
it's definitely
like zingy.
If you hold it in your mouth and really let it melt, it really causes you to salivate. It does. Few people are talking about strawberry, and also that this goes really well with the fruit booter.
Yeah,
that was one of them.
Pitch my glass back.
Oh yes, beer.
It has a sherbetiness to it as well. So unlike the ruby, where the sherbet flavour from the ruby is the addition of citric acid, this chocolate, this 64%, does not have any additional pipettes of flavour. These flavours are naturally occurring. They have come from the ground where the roots of the tree grew. So this chocolate comes from Madagascar. It's also a really incredible chocolate to demonstrate to everybody that you can eat a world-class chocolate that is under 70%. So as a nation, we are programmed to think that if we're going to eat good quality chocolate, it has to be 70% and above, which is a little bit like turning up in the off license and choosing your alcohol purely based on alcohol content. I mean, there maybe is a small percentage of society that would prioritize that, but in general, we are in an off license choosing our beer, our whiskies, our wines, whatever spirits, based on who we know is a favorite of ours as far as the manufacturer, the maker. And particularly with the wine world, we all probably know enough to differentiate between whether we prefer red or white wine. We perhaps know that we like French wine or New Zealand wine, or we particularly like wine from wherever, you know, we might all be really favouring British wine at the moment. Chocolate is the same, but somehow, because of cookery shows and because of certain chefs who bang on and on and on about 70% and above as a cooking ingredient without explaining that 70% and above is about intense chocolate, cacao, flavour notes in a recipe. So when you're making a cake or a tart or a chocolate brownie or a muffin, you're adding other ingredients to the chocolate. You're adding flour and sugar and butter and lots of other ingredients. So you're dissipating the cacao flavour, the chocolate flavour. And so, of course, you need a really, really high cocoa content. But also, you don't need a complex, delicate, well-made chocolate. You just need a flavour. So the best kind of chocolate for cooking with is an own brand, 70% plus. So Tesco's own brand or whatever supermarket you shop in will probably have their own brand of high cocoa content chocolate. Lindt do a 99%. That is not a chocolate that's designed to sit and enjoy in front of the telly on a Saturday night. It's an intense cooking ingredient. It's something to maybe grate onto your porridge or to add cream and make it into a truffle, or, you know, to just use as an ingredient. It's very rare that a palate genuinely enjoys a super high cocoa content chocolate, because high cocoa content chocolate, when it gets up to 100%, it doesn't have any cocoa butter in it. So if you pop back into the cocoa bean indent, you will find your little piece of, no, the dark piece.
Oh, sorry.
So Brett is holding up the white piece. I'm holding up the dark. The dark piece.
Yeah, no, I know. Sorry. I thought you wanted me to keep holding that.
So don't hold up. Yeah. So Brett and I've now, So if you pop this into your mouth, maybe just have a third or a half of it. Crunch it up.
That's definitely got a snap to it. Tracy just keeps coming out. Not only does Tracy in the chat room have a great hat, but she keeps coming out with these great comments. She doesn't put the chocolate on there. She put on her porridge. She puts beer on her porridge.
Oh, Tracy, clearly, Brett, you're more of a fan of Brett. Good idea, though. Saturday morning.
Wow. I was going to say, I was given a bar of 99% chocolate, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I took a big, snap and chunk off of it, and I did not enjoy it. And it's still...
Yeah, we give me half a pint of water now.
Exactly. I need to cook with it. I mean, that is chocolate that's going to make you want to drink, not just...
This is 100%.
Yeah.
This is basically... The cocoa nib is ground down, and it's ground for hours and hours and hours, not only to make it eventually become a liquid, but also it's making the micron size. It's all about the melt in the mouth as much as the flavour, but the grinding eventually makes the cocoa nibs into a liquid, and the liquid splits into cocoa solid and cocoa butter. So if you want to get the white...
Okay, now hang it up. Hold it up.
Which is not chocolate, it's just pure cocoa butter. Take a little bit of the cocoa butter and a little bit of the chocolate.
Oh, no.
And try them together. So munch them together. And what you now have is a really crude form of chocolate, because you've got cocoa solid and cocoa butter. And the only thing that's missing is sugar. So if you can reach over and grab a little bit of maple syrup or agave or any kind of sweetness and have a little tiny sort of spot of sweetness, then you do have a crude chocolate. Maybe you should have mentioned that at the beginning, to have that to hand. Yeah. But essentially it's the cocoa butter that gives the mouth the melt. experience, and the intense chocolate flavour comes from the cocoa solid. So once those cocoa nibs have been ground down and you've got cocoa butter and cocoa solid, they are separated off within the factory and they're brought back together further down the kind of processing line, where the right amount of cocoa butter is introduced to the right amount of cocoa solid for whatever the recipe is.
Yeah.
And a little bit of sugar is then added just to enhance and bring out the chocolate flavour. Just like you put a little sprinkle of salt on your chips, or a little bit of mint sauce with the lamb, or a little bit of apple with the pork. The sugar just enhances and sort of highlights the chocolatey flavour. So the amazing high quality, well grown, respected cocoa beans just need a tiny bit of sugar to bring out the complex flavour notes. The cheap chocolate that we've all grown up with all our lives thinking it's chocolate, I call it confection. So the kind of Nestle Cadbury level of chocolate, not only have they used very, very cheap cocoa beans, they add lots of sugar to mask that there isn't really any fabulous flavour.
The character and background and like we had in the 64, and it doesn't really, that's just not there, so they've got to just make it sweet. But something else that is there that they put on the name is in the next chocolate that we're going to move to, and that's milk. And so you can maybe talk about that part in a minute.
We're now going into the corner, so we're diagonal from the caramelized white.
Where are we at? Here we are. No, I want the beer. And we're going to do Millionaire. Right. So Millionaire, salted caramel chocolate milk stout. Why, as a small brewer, would you make a stout when you can make something that has chocolate and flavors of caramel and has a lovely lasting lacing head on it? Oh, it's great. That is a good looking drink. I'm really pleased about that. So I started brewing because I wasn't allowed to work in the UK. I moved over to marry my wife, and I wasn't allowed to work for about 6 months. And so I was a little vagrant, not really, but just lounging around. And I wanted to be the guy in the pub that knew how to make beer. And not a week goes by, pretty much not a day goes by, that I look at a beer and just think, wow, I know how to make that. I think it's just brilliant. But Millionaire milk stout. This beer is a complex malt bill grown in Britain. The malt is grown in Britain, but it's malted by Simpson's malting. It's actually got lots of flavor from that. That's one of the key ingredients in here, and the caramel comes from the malt, so that's been slowly steeped and almost stewed to caramelize the sugar, that's the natural sugar that's in the malt, and that's where you get a caramel flavor from that. But then we have some lovely roasted black malts, and that gives you some chocolate notes, some coffee notes, and then we layer in cocoa nibs. So that's this more to the coming from the background, the chocolate notes from the malt. Now you get in the foreground, in the beginning, you get much more chocolate, kind of chocolate milk, cool, smooth creaminess, which leads you to the last two ingredients, which is lactose. So lactose is an unfermentable sugar that comes from milk that is put into typically stouts to give it body richness. And historically, it was it was in Ireland and throughout Britain. It was actually given in hospitals to nursing mothers and to as a nutrient type drink. It was expected to help kind of boost you up, make you strong. I wouldn't suggest that. I'm not suggesting that. But it is. This is and the last ingredient is Cornish sea salt. Really kind of melding all of that cacophony of character together, and leaving you kind of wanting a little bit more. But it's not salty. It's just there's a good minerality, kind of brings things together in this one.
Yeah. Oh, this is my desert island beer, Brett. So good. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, and I'd been drinking this when I was breastfeeding.
You were? Did you say?
No, my children are too old.
I was like, no, you weren't.
This would have been my go-to, my kind of like, I need something to medicinal.
Yeah. This one that we make, there's been so much love for our Millionaire milk stout this year. We brewed some of the most of it we've ever done.
It's just comforting.
It's really nice. It's really enjoyable. Thank you.
I'm gonna leave a can of this to go flat overnight, and I'm gonna have a play tomorrow. I'm gonna see if I can make some ganache with it.
Yes. So yes. We'll get into that in a sec. I'll talk to you about a little bit about cooking with beer in a sec. But what's the chocolate that we've got?
So lovely snap. This chocolate is a 46% milk, so pretty dark for milk chocolate. And when you first crunch it around, I think the chocolatey flavour comes through pretty quickly. It's very intense for milk. And then the after notes are kind of like midway on your palate. It's very floral, but it does have a maltiness. This is a chocolate that I pair when I'm making chocolates. I pair this with floral fondants, so it goes amazingly with violet and rose and those kind of flavors. Do you ever put flowery notes in your beers?
Yeah, sorry, hang on. That kind of went down the wrong pipe. Yeah, you asked the question right at the wrong time.
Did it shock you?
No. I wanted to. Someone asked a question about U.S. chocolates and I know you probably didn't notice it. It was off piece though. So
I can barely read the text.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll ask you in a minute. But I just wanted to let that. I can't even remember who it was. It was the person who dropped their chocolate box actually. North Street maybe. Yeah, North Street Games Library. That sounds like a pub. We want to be there.
That sounds like a great place to hang out.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Where is it?
Oh yeah, okay, we're there now. We're there.
For the 12th of April.
Yeah.
Out in the garden.
They've asked, what does Lisa think about? I think they're trying to pick a fight between you and I, but what does Lisa think about American chocolates like Hershey's? Are they better, worse than Cadbury's?
That's such a good question for you and I.
Even more though, is there a fat content / melting point difference, or is that an urban myth? I don't know that last bit. I don't know that myth.
Okay, so Brett.
Yeah.
What do you think between Hershey's and Cadbury's? Like, which do you?
I would go for Cadbury's for sure.
Okay, why?
I like the richness of it, and I don't feel like Hershey's, the only thing good for Hershey's is the Hershey's Kisses that have a nostalgia and a memory to it, but not a chocolate note. It's much more waxy, maybe just kind of flavorless. But
Yeah.
Cadbury's, I feel like I can taste the ingredients, although they may not be the best chocolate. I can still taste some chocolate. It's richer, it's smoother. It doesn't taste waxy and glycerol, if that's a thing in chocolate. But that's what I'd say.
You did answer that perfectly, because it's all about the memory, the evoking of a memory. So the Hershey's Kiss takes you back to some place that is comforting or happy, and all chocolate is developed in different countries for the expectation of that nation. So if we had some chocolate, some Cadbury's from India and some Cadbury's from the UK, the people that grew up in India eating Indian Cadbury's wouldn't really like our Cadbury's, because our recipe has been designed for our British palates and the Indian recipe has been designed for their palate, but also for their climate. And the American chocolate has just evolved and become that Hershey's is what the Americans expect when they eat chocolate, and what eventually evokes their childhood memories. And whether you kind of get to an adult stage and go and live in another country and still love it or hate it, or however you feel about chocolate, there's always going to be that memory thing. And for me, the kind of memory chocolate for me is a finger of fudge. I mean, it's a finger of sugar.
Yeah.
And a tiny amount of chocolate on the outside of it. And we visit this I do tutor chocolate tastings on just purely chocolate. And I'm bringing in old childhood chocolate. I'm bringing in retro chocolate bars to compare against these complex chocolates.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how many people are eating a chocolate that they thought was incredible because it reminded them of their childhood, and like the Caramac.
Yeah.
You know, if I wasn't in the chocolate world, and you know, maybe I was an accountant, or you know, worked in an office where food wasn't a thing, and I ate a piece of Caramac, having not had any since I was sort of 12 or 13, I know that I'd love it.
Yeah.
But I've eaten enough amazing caramelized white chocolate now in my adult life, and compared it with Caramac, to know that Caramac really is just a sort of waxy, sugary, disappointing waste of calories.
Just yes, yeah.
Yeah. So have we gone a bit off
I think we've gone off, but we're on milk chocolate. We didn't go off Penny's question, who was it?
Oh no, we were discussing the North Street Library.
North Street, yeah.
Potato eating club.
Games club. We definitely stayed on that topic.
Yeah, the Hershey's and the Cadbury's. I think it's about where you grew up and what memories are evoked. And Brett, you're unusual that you're flying the flag for Cadbury's rather than Hershey's. Shame on you.
Wow. I did. I nodded.
Hershey's kiss.
Yeah, definitely. And that's it, right? That's what it's a novelty thing. It's a memory thing. It's not a connoisseur type thing. It's not a flavorful thing. Yeah, definitely not. I particularly remember this is how American this memory is. This is a peanut butter cookie with a Hershey's chocolate kiss in the middle, and you put that in the oven, and the Hershey's kiss doesn't melt, which is crazy. Which is just crazy. So I don't know if that shows that it's
clever how many chemicals they can put in to stop that from happening.
Exactly. But all of this is still on topic because we're talking about milk chocolate, and And I think when I tasted this, I actually didn't have that much chocolate to taste. I was, being professional and paying attention to it and not just enjoying it. And but I instantly it reminded me the darker, roastier. The sweetness of this chocolate matched the sweetness of the beer, the intensity of that, and then because I had a real chocolate character here. What I really tasted in this, it brought out all the roasty characters in a subtle way, and it made it more like I was drinking a cappuccino or and with a little some dusting of chocolate around there. So it brought out that roasty, stouty character without being too overwhelming, and still sweet and rich and really lovely. That's my take notes on it.
In the kind of background that that no one else will know about, I pre-decided that I thought that a lower cocoa content chocolate would match perfectly with this beer, and I was really surprised when Brett and Andrew came back and were like, no, we think the 46% is better, and you were absolutely spot on, because it just needed that extra intensity of the cocoa flavor to just kind of marry perfectly. This is just heaven. These two.
Great. Somebody, I'm trying to find them. Family flavor. It's a really good comment, Martin, as well. But I'm trying to find a comment. I think it might have been someone called Joanne, and but they just really exemplified what we were talking about of having a go and having a play and enjoying the flavors. She really enjoyed this one with the fruit booter. Yes, this chocolate brings out the funk in fruit booter, and so she's recognizing that wild fermentation. So with Brettanomyces, Lactobacillus, other Pediococcus, these kind of funky, rich, earthy, wild characters, and this chocolate, I would probably guess that it's kind of that umami and fermentation kind of coming out and matching together. So amazing call, Joanne. She's going back in time into the fruit booter, tasting it. Can you comment on the new oak-aged Millionaire that was announced today? So really good. Thank you, Tim. Good helping me plug a new beer.
Well done, Tim.
Yeah. So Millionaire, we've been doing this one for 6 years at least. It's been in-house favorite, and also we are always surprised at how good it does all year round, how many people actually are attracted to it all year round into the summer. In the first number of years, we always thought we'd stop doing it in the summer, and it keeps going. But we had never really played around with any different versions of it until now. And I don't think we're done playing around with them. I want to keep doing little small offshoots, little one-off, small volume ones. But we just released today an oak-aged Millionaire. Not only is this the first time we played around with Millionaire, but it's the first time we've really played around with using oak chips, because we really fly the flag. We really fly the flag of barrel aging. We have 500 oak barrels at the brewery, but there's some limitations that means if we only do those, and that means that you don't usually get fresh oak character from oak barrels. You usually get oak barrels that previously held red wine or bourbon or Scotch whiskey or port or Madeira. These are amazing drinks, and they impart their own character into the liquid. But with oak chips, we can get a tannin. We can get notes of pretty good big notes of vanilla, and that's what we wanted to try to work with was trying to really harness that vanilla character from the oak, from the American oak. And that's what you're going to expect out of Oak Age Millionaire. Expect everything you love about Millionaire, but just kind of a little bit more sophistication, a little bit more tannin complexity going on in it. That was a long description. Thank you for the plug.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Did we send you any? I don't think we did. Sorry.
No.
Oh, I'm gonna have one more half of this one, just because I really, really enjoy it. But the next beer, how is everybody doing in the chat? We're still. No, now I'm talking with my mouth full. Sorry.
Oh, this is like pouring liquid chocolate, Brett.
The beautiful can.
I love the can, the colour.
Well, let's see.
This
has been a Marmite beer of loving and hating.
I love this.
And I got to give a lot of acknowledgement to Laura. Laura works at the brewery. Laura is the Wild Beer Company's lab hobbit. She makes sure that the right organisms, yeast and bacteria, are in the right place and not in the wrong place. So she uses lots of pipettes and petri dishes, traditional lab equipment. She's brilliant at what she does, and she's been doing a great job. But what she also does is she's passionate about beer and imperial stouts. So this was her creation. This was her ideas about creating a Leberkuchen inspired beer. And her and I worked on this last year, which I have two opposite ends of the spectrum glasses that I'm going to see what do people think, oh, this one's kind of dirty. I'm not doing that one. This one, those are fresh watermarks on that one. I'm doing this obnoxiously large one just for fun.
Go for it.
That is black as night, that one. So, Leberkuchen this is a German kind of Christmas celebration cake. We know it here in England mostly, or Britain, mostly from little hearts and little Christmas cakes you get from Aldi and Lidl. That's how I was introduced to it, at least. Inside is often filled with jam, often apricot. There's ginger, there's clove, cinnamon. We used apricot concentrate in this to mimic that apricot jam. The concentrate being like really cooked down, richer, bigger flavors, some tartness from that. But we used quite a lot of cocoa nibs, as well as this beer. We cooked this beer for nearly 20 hours. It was been boiled and simmered. And that's where you get this really intense bitterness. You get chocolatiness. It might even be on par with those 99% chocolate. And when I think of cooking, I think of using beers that are really over the top because you're not going to use that much of the liquid. So you need to make sure that liquid is super flavorful. So that was my little tip on cooking with beer. Make sure that beer is over the top because you're not going to use lots of it, but so you need it to go a long way. Just kind of like a apricot concentrate. A little bit goes a long way.
Yeah, I'd love to cook a slow cooked brisket in this.
Yes. Yeah, and definitely Marmite. People are picking up flavors like soy sauce, really rich. And it isn't for everybody. We make so many different beers, and it's it's almost odd for people to like all of them. But this one is great for the winter, great for those cool spring nights, obviously, because we still want to sell it.
It's very meaty. Like it's a meal.
So this is where, with the chocolate that we're going to try, this is where we were starting to really differ within the team, which chocolate goes best with this one. So what chocolate did we choose in the end? Salted licorice.
So,
No.
You went with a 66%, which I think marries perfectly with it, because the 66% has much, much smoother tasting notes than the other chocolates that I sent for you to consider. If anyone still has the 64% left, just do a little comparison, because the 64% is almost closer in flavour profile to the Trillionaire. But it would be too cloying and too much. The Marmite chocolate with the Marmite beer. So, in my opinion, you are absolutely spot on to go with this one. It's got very, very smooth coffee and spice notes. So, 66% chocolate from Caribbean islands. It's not single origin. It's just made up of cocoa beans from any of the islands in the Caribbean. And it comes together with a really, really palatable, lovely dark chocolate. Again, a world-class quality chocolate that's under 70%. And a really, really superb high cocoa content chocolate that children are very drawn to. So if I get a child that's perhaps got a dairy intolerance, choosing which of the dark chocolates they want mum to buy for them, or granny, or whoever's treating them, 99% of children choose this, because it's not strong, it's a comforting, lovely, chocolatey, creamy, smooth. It's the kind of latte experience.
Yeah. So my actual, maybe controversial, I don't know. Tell me what you think. I was wondering if the darker chocolates were actually just too much. It was just pairing too much intensity with it. And actually the milk that we tried with the Millionaire.
Well, let's give it a go.
Almost toning it down, taming it down a little bit. That's how.
I'm eating a bit of the milk now. I feel like I want to have the milk first. Oh, do you know, it's making me, this is just like the drink for Halloween. It's gingerbread, treacle, cake, just everything in a really intense gingerbread sponge.
It definitely goes more, not in a bad way, but confectionery. That sponge, that baked. Yeah, so there's a few people saying that as well. Ian, Leah, I'm going to give you a high five. We're on the same page, but we're the few. But it's good. So yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
Coffee. I'm just reading different comments. Sorry, I got distracted. I was talking and I got distracted with myself. Wow, that's bad news. Yes, thank you so much, Lisa. I look forward to doing another one of these at some point. It would be great.
We're slipping some white chocolate next time, Brett.
Yeah, well, no, just what we've done. I like dark chocolate as well, but I do controversially in the world of chocolate people. Well, the connoisseurs around me, they're always putting their nose up at me because I like the white.
No, we can find some nice white connoisseurs chocolate easily.
Oh, good. Oh, good. And you were telling me that you were going to be going and doing some filming or something soon. It sounded what do you mind sharing what you're going to be doing?
Oh, it's not that glamorous. Yeah, I'm being filmed basically teaching people how to make Easter eggs. A Swedish firm are making Easter eggs all of next week. So yeah,
but this sounded like
in a film studio in London.
And this sounded like a marathon now. And so maybe from just like a food professional to another food professional, like we do these and we enjoy them. They kind of help fuel us. At times they drain us. At times it's both of those, fueling and emptying. But what you're going to be doing sounded like a marathon. Like you've got to definitely be a professional to do it, because it's not just an hour session, is it?
No. So it starts at 9 in the morning and it finishes at 7 in the evening, back to back for 2 days. Yeah.
Wow.
Will I still be smiling at 6:30?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'll take some of your beers with me, Brett. Power me through.
Lisa, do you have I'm getting some comments talking about do you have your dog around you? Have I missed this? Did I miss this?
Oh, well spotted. Yeah. Coco. Cokie. She's sleeping now. Cokie. She's
Brilliant.
like, what do you want? Come here. Come on. Yeah, I've got a spaniel.
Oh, brilliant. Well, sleeping.
She's just going to come and say hi. Come on, up you come.
I'm getting I'm getting questions.
Get your cat out now.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Or I could. Well, my puppy's sleeping as well, and she's heavy now. She's too big. She's too big for me to lift her up. And did you say that your spaniel's name is Coco?
Coco.
Oh, there she is. Mine.
Cow. Yeah, my spaniel. She's actually living on borrowed time. It's really sad. If anyone noticed, she's got a big tumor in her cheek. So she's 12. She's had a really lovely life, but it's coming to an end, which is sad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
She has no idea.
Yeah. And
she's still wagging her tail.
I've got another one who's just woken up and just come over next to me. Maybe I'll try to pick her up. I'll show. Oh my goodness, she's heavy.
Oh my goodness.
There she is.
She's a proper chunker.
She just woke up. Yeah. I don't know where she all of a sudden just woke up once we started talking about it.
What's her name, Brett?
Also a food name, Mochi.
Ah, very Mochi. Good name.
So this is for those who don't know, this is a Japanese rice dumpling that's soft and kind of pillowy, a bit squishy, wrinkly sometimes if it's really handmade, and has a beautiful looking texture and great beer, great like dumpling thing. Yeah, but Lisa and everybody, thank you so much for joining in, sharing so many stories and your expertise. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
For all of you, yes, just one more thing, just to say thank you. We've put, if you use a code called Live15 in the Wild Beer web shop, you'll get 15% off. So enjoy that. Thank you so much. We are going to be doing more of these coming soon. We don't have any on the online shop at the moment, and we don't know if it might just be a beer session, maybe with somebody else from the brewery, or just myself in my lovely kitchen. But yeah, and Lisa, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You're very welcome.
If anyone wants to see what I'm up to, you can follow me on my Instagram page, which
Brilliant.
is the Chocolate Tart UK.
Brilliant. The Chocolate Tart UK, and that's where we can follow along with all your antics and your London trips.
Yeah, if there's anything
That's
worth
awesome.
photographing.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great evening and enjoy the weekend. Cheers.
Bye.